Sekeres and Price for Friday, November 17th, 2023. We're coming to you from the Go-Goat Sports Studio, built by Arbor Lee here at the iconic Wall Center, where if you're planning a holiday party, there is 55,000 square feet of striking indoor-outdoor space here at the Wall. Call them 604-893-7370. Matt Sekeres alongside Rink Wide's Jeff Paterson, sitting in for Blake today. Grady Sass hitting switches, conducting things. This show presentation of Applewood Auto Group. We're right now at Applewood Nissan Richmond. Try the Leaf, the huge stock of electric vehicles, rates from 5.99%, or the Rogue, where financing starts from 3.99%. Because, J-Pat,
it's all good at Applewood.
Poll question today: have the Canucks done enough to convince Elias Pettersson to re-sign? Yes or no? You can vote at Sekeres and Price on Twitter or YouTube. We will get to the poll question here in a second, Jeff. But first, I know you and new friend Irf Gaffar, old friend Irf Gaffar, sitting in last night on Rink Wide, digesting a 5-2 Vancouver Canucks loss in Calgary. This is the fourth 5-2 game in the last five. 2 wins, 2 losses amongst that. Second of a back-to-back for the Canucks. So legs weren't there. I think that was pretty clear. Calgary emerges with the victory. Canucks now 12-4-1 on the season, but still a 3-way tie amongst the Vancouver Canucks trio of Pettersson, JT Miller, Quinn Hughes. 27 points leads the NHL. They're 3 up on the field, and that stay at the top of the Western Conference didn't last long. Not even 24 hours.
Right. As the Canucks were losing in Calgary, Vegas was winning a wild one in Montreal. For the numerologists out there, though, Matt, you mentioned all those 5-2 games. And, of course, Bo Horvat's return was a 4-3 game. So 7 is the magic number for the Vancouver Canucks as far as goals in their games are concerned. But unfortunately for them, Calgary got 5 of the 7 goals at the Saddledome. We talk about scheduled losses from time to time.
Yeah.
And if you had looked at the schedule, you would have looked and said, that is going to be an uphill climb. Like, not only was it back-to-back, and in fact, back-to-back wasn't really the issue here, although Wednesday night's game, let's be honest, pretty emotional from start to finish, the comeback, the overtime, and then you jump on a plane, you lose an hour going to Calgary, and you face a Flames team that hadn't played the night before. But beyond that, it was 4-6. And when you think about where the Canucks have been over the last week, on Saturday, they were in Toronto. On Thursday, they're in Calgary. Well, in between, they had gone to Montreal, all the way home for a practice and a game, and then back to Alberta. So 5 games in 8 nights, it's a lot. It is. It's not an excuse because every team gets portions of the schedule that are compressed and jammed. But 5 and 8 is a lot on the body with all that travel. And they just looked like a team that had hit the wall. They're not going to win them all. It kind of felt that way for a little while there, but you're not going to win every game that's in front of you.
I came across scheduled loss on my timeline last night as watching the post-mort of all this. I found myself daydreaming, and I know it's daydreaming because I don't think the league will ever go to this, but could you imagine a schedule with just fewer games where you didn't have to play back-to-back, where we didn't ask all that much of these athletes?
Can I sign the petition now,
I'd sign it too. Like a 70-game season where, maybe, you play 1 or 2 back-to-backs per year as opposed to what we see here from the National Hockey League in terms of its scheduling. And we've talked about how the Canucks are going through a compressed portion of the schedule right now. And we're going to talk a little football later, but these Thursday night football games and the calamity that it's causing with injuries. And we saw that last night in what was supposed to be a delicious matchup between Cincinnati and Baltimore. Okay, let's get to the poll question for a second. I voted yes because I just think a lot of things have fallen into place here. And there's obviously some optimism amongst the reports that are out there on an Elias Pettersson contract extension. Number one, got off to the great. Well, number one, you have organizational alignment for the first time in years. Number two, there hasn't been that Canucks sports and entertainment dysfunction that we have become accustomed to rear its head this year. And let's keep our fingers crossed that we're past that era of this franchise's history. JT Miller has turned into an elite forward, and you did a welcome mat on this earlier in the week. Look through Cup winners, you need those two elite forwards, and JT has become that, not to mention taking on all the tough matchups defensively. And then you look around and you've got an improved bottom six. You've got an improved defense core plus the fantastic start. So I would like to think the conditions are ripe for the Vancouver Canucks to get their best player, or at least their best forward, on a contract extension, even if it's short term. Look, you'd love the long-term extension because you want to keep him here as long as possible. But at this stage of the game, I'm not going to be all that picky. Just get him on a contract extension. And I do think the conditions are ripe here. Strike while the iron's hot if you're Patrick Allvin and Jim Rutherford.
Yeah, and I think finally Elias Pettersson can see what's possible with this group. And for the last bunch of years, there was no vision. There was no foresight. It was just get out there and do the best. And he did his best at 102 points last year. And, they were still miles from the playoffs. And you're right. Coaching changes in back-to-back years, the house cleaning, we're coming up on the 2-year anniversary of that. It has been nothing but dysfunction. But the hope was that all of that was behind them and it was done so that they could start moving forward. And they've done that. And he's having individual success. That power play right now that he's a big part of, it does look unstoppable. And it did on that goal that he scored. Like Jacob Markstrom didn't even move across the net.
And that's one of the things that went Vancouver's way last night. Was special teams. 1 for 3 on the power play and a perfect penalty kill. And that was something we were talking about after Wednesday's game. They've got to get better on this penalty kill.
Yeah, and honestly, when I look at the way that game unfolded, he scores the power play goal to get them on the board, and then he had that chance all alone in front of the net. Garland found him. There was a breakdown. If he scores there and the Canucks go up 2-0, there's enough angst in Calgary these days that I do wonder, would the home fans have turned on the Flames? Like, what would that have done? Unfortunately for the Canucks, Pettersson didn't score there. The Flames tied the game late in the first period, and then they took over in the second. And again, it goes back to what we said with just the travel and the schedule catching up to the Canucks. It sort of played out the way you thought. But, had they got to the third period down 2-1, they were trailing against the Islanders the other night and found a way. And the way that they score goals and with their top-end talent, at 2-1, they were still in it. The final minute of the second period, a bad goal, a bad shift. That one just felt like a dagger to me.
I was going to ask you about Casey DeSmith and what you made of him last night.
Yeah, I mean, like everybody on this roster, he's been a good news story, but that doesn't mean that he's going to be a good news story every night out. And that was the first time that the Dubé goal, puck just sitting behind him, that's a goal that the Canucks really haven't been giving up, where a puck gets through a goaltender. And when it's happened, Ian Cole's generally been there to scoop it off the goal line.
Very leaky last night.
He was on the bench, though. So the Dubé goal didn't love. And then there were breakdowns before the Hanifin goal. Like Noah Hanifin shouldn't have a path to the net, basically driving wide on the right side. Pettersson could have done more. I think Tyler Myers was the near side defenseman. But ultimately, as a goaltender, you're the last line of defense, and he didn't make a stop there. So Casey DeSmith's been a nice pickup and a nice add and a seamless fit for this hockey club. First time that he doesn't help the club pick up at least a single point. So it's really his first blemish. I guess the overtime loss to the Rangers might fall in that category as well. But, I thought there was a maturity, dare I say this, but a maturity in Canucks social spaces after the game last night. Like there wasn't finger pointing. There wasn't screaming. There wasn't, people were, look, they had put enough in the bank. They've squirreled enough points that, this isn't the rainy day. The rainy day may still come. This was, a drop here or a drop there last night. And again, the reasons are there with the schedule, but also, they had to play without Andrei Kuzmenko. The injuries to this point had been lower in the lineup, but the Kuzmenko injury on top of Pius Suter, whose mysterious injury now sounds like it might keep him out through the weekend here as well. So that would be 3 games in 4 nights for Suter. Carson Soucy. Depth was tested a little bit, and they were the second best team on the ice.
I think with regards to Canucks fans taking last night's loss as they did, number one, I think the team has equity built up with them. Number two, I think, some do expect regression here. I think they're punching above their weight class, and I think a lot in Canuck Nation understand that, particularly as you mentioned with the injuries that told last night. And then of course there's the culture of impending doom, which we still see on our feedback channels. I fear like we jinxed Quinn Hughes yesterday. We asked on our poll question yesterday, is he having the greatest season we've seen from a Canuck player? 80% said yes, but certainly not his Mona Lisa either. A very short share of the expected goals, outscored 3 Buzz with Hughes on the ice, just the 1 shot, and that's been a rarity these days, J-Pat, and 2 penalties, and then there was Pettersson at -4 last night.
Look, the stars were not shining for the Vancouver Canucks, and it's going to happen. And that's where, when I think in earlier games, the game in Edmonton, the second game of the season, Lafferty, Studnicka, Höglander got his first that night. Like, that was a night where Casey DeSmith and some of the lesser lights were able to rise up and help this team win hockey games when the stars are held in check, as they were in Calgary. Is there enough depth scoring from this hockey club? And I think that question is still, out there. I think some people wonder a little, but look, I thought Nils Höglander played hard, scored his 4th goal of the season. He only had 3 while he was in the NHL all of last year. He's got 4 here, and they're not even a quarter of the way through their schedule. So good for him. Linus Karlsson got the call on his 24th birthday, a night he'll never forget. And I thought he acquitted himself reasonably well. There were other issues around this team. Linus Karlsson wasn't one of them last night, but I will tell you, sort of under the radar, Matt, I do think that this is an issue now, and that is 5-on-5 scoring.
Yeah.
That everything's been going so well for this hockey club, and people are lapping it up, but the bulk of the game is still played 5-on-5. And so Höglander scored a 5-on-5 goal, but for the longest time, it looked like Pettersson's goal was going to stand up as the only Canuck goal on the night. That came on the power play against the Islanders, 3 power play goals, and then the 3-on-3 overtime goal in Toronto on Saturday, both goals on the power play. They did get 3 5-on-5 goals in Montreal, but 2 empty netters as well. So in their last 4 games, they have 4 5-on-5 goals.
What's the shocking stat? Combined even strength goals, JT Miller and Elias Pettersson?
They have 3.
3.
17 games into the season.
And Miller has all these
Miller
goals.
has 1.
A 10-1 win, a 5-0 win, an 8-1 win.
Right. And so why does this matter? Like, I hear a lot of people saying, look, they're the highest scoring team in the league. Give them a break. Again, there's going to be nights where the power play, as good as it's been, runs into good penalty kill on the other side, a hot goaltender, or just doesn't convert, and the bulk of the game remains played at even strength. You have to find a way. And so it is shocking. As good as JT Miller has been at both ends of the ice, 17 games into the season, Matt, he's got 1 5-on-5 goal, and Elias Pettersson has 2. Sam Lafferty's got 3 by himself. Mikheyev leads the team, by the way, with 6.
You mentioned Linus Karlsson's NHL debut, and of course, this is the trade tree that goes back to Alex Burrows. Jonathan Dallane was the acquisition from the Ottawa Senators, didn't want to be in Utica. They moved him on for Linus Karlsson, and at first we thought, they really downgraded there, but give Karlsson credit. He has upped his stock in life since that trade. Played 11 minutes, 54 seconds last night. Actually played a little more than Höglander. 3 shots, 4 attempts. He was +1 on a night where a lot of guys were carrying dashes. 1 hit, 1 blocked shot. They trusted him for 6 faceoffs, or he had to take 6 faceoffs. He won 2 of them, skating on a line with his countryman Höglander and Lafferty. I was a little surprised it was Karlsson and not Baines or Nils Oman. What was your take there on the call-up? He has since been sent back down.
Right.
We understand today with Nikita Hiroshi being called back up for tomorrow's game against Seattle.
Yeah, I think there's a hunger in this market for Archie Baines to get his opportunity, and hopefully it will come. But Linus Karlsson has put in a decent year last year in Abbotsford, his first year in North America, and has picked up where he's left off. And I know that they're really happy with the way that he's playing down on the farm. And so I don't know all that goes into these discussions, but it was pretty clear that the plan was to move Connor Garland up, and that whoever was getting the call was going to get plugged in basically lower in the lineup. And so I just think that they decided to go with a guy that has a little more size, perhaps, and maybe a little more professional polish than Archie Baines. It's not a knock on Baines. Again, his moment will come, and I do believe that Archie Baines is going to play NHL games for the Vancouver Canucks. So A cool story, on your birthday. Not many guys get that opportunity. I don't think that went into the decision here. And yeah, Karlsson was fine. Like, again, it's one game. The team didn't have much juice going. So kind of a tough game for him to slide in there and hope that he's going to be any sort of difference maker. But I thought that, the fact that he was out on that late power play, and again, it's garbage time, but I thought that was a nod from Rick Tocchet that he had done enough to, why not give this guy a late shift with the man advantage.
Yeah, Baines continues to lead the Abbey Canucks with 17 points. Oman is tied for second with 14. Is Sheldon Dries at 13 points. And then Karlsson, who's the fourth leading scorer on the team amongst forwards, fifth overall with Wolanin up there as well, gets the call. And, what we've talked about this year on several occasions is that at least you've got guys on the farm that you can call up and get a little bit excited about, right? Like, these aren't necessarily journeymen. These are guys who still have an opportunity to be NHLers, and in some cases quality NHLers at that. So we'll see who gets the next one, and we'll see if Linus Karlsson is better for his first NHL game.
And we should mention too that there've been a number, surprisingly but troubling as well, a rash of concussion issues down on the farm. Like Vasily Podkolzin is supposed to return this weekend. If he had been playing for the last couple of weeks, might he have been an option? Perhaps.
Well, he was 7 points in 6 games, so he had a great start there before the terrifying injury.
So, hopefully guys get back to full health and are able.
Nielsen's on that list too, concussions. Yeah.
And I think Aiden McDonough as well is another one that's been out of the lineup for a little while. And Guillaume Brisebois at the NHL level was hurt in the preseason. So you hate to see that, just because in Brisebois' case, you just never know in terms of the recovery time. And Tocchet said he'd been skating off and on, but still dealing with some issues. So when we talk about dealing with issues, Matt, we should mention we talked 5-8 for the Canucks. Today's a day off, and then they start into another 5-8 stretch here. So they really are running the gauntlet in terms of compressed schedule. Level of competition, maybe not as high as it has been at other times or will be, but still, you saw last night that it does take a toll. And so at home to Seattle, at home to San Jose, and then out on the road for 3 and 4 over the U.S. Thanksgiving, to Colorado, to San Jose, and then to Seattle, and then San Jose.
Well, I was going to ask you about Seattle, the opponents tomorrow at Rogers Arena. They are 6-8-4. They had a very difficult start to the season. They're at -18 in goal differential, so they not faring very well there. But it's a team that was a game away from going to the Western Conference Final last year. 2 points out of a playoff spot as we speak, albeit having played 18 games. Many of around them played just 15, 16 games. Do you have any hope that the rivalry finally takes hold this season, Jeff? Or because I imagine Seattle's like already getting close to the desperation point, and we're going to see the Kraken twice here in the next week. They're in Seattle a week from today. Do you have any hopes for the rivalry taking hold this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think every time that they play, they'll put another brick in the foundation of this rivalry. But rivalries truly are born in the playoffs, and that would be incredible if the Canucks could get back to the playoffs. And the Kraken obviously had their run, and if they could find their way on a collision course, the way that the playoffs are set now to promote more divisional playoff matchups. But we're getting ahead of ourselves here. I mean, I think the fact that they play twice in a week, if something happens on Saturday, short memories and, those types of things. But, I mean, look, the Kraken, they struggle to score goals. They're one of the lowest scoring teams in the National Hockey League. They went to overtime and then a shootout against the Islanders. They ended up winning last night, so it's a victory for them. But, 3 goals seems like an awful lot right now. And it looks like Joey Decord has sort of supplanted Philip Grubauer as their go-to guy in goal. So I don't think they envisioned having goaltending issues, but they did in the early going, and they just haven't seemed to really sort their offense out. Matty Beniers, I think a lot of people thought that, he would take that big next step. That hasn't happened for him. It will. It'll just take him a little more time than some perhaps wanted. And yeah, I mean, Brandon Tanev, I know, was injured, I think, on opening night in Vegas. He just got back in the lineup. Not a difference maker for them.
is going to miss this game, ex-Kraken.
Yeah, that's too bad for him. So it's there for the Canucks, and they had best, use this day off to rest and recharge because, again, the schedule picks up here in a big way. But these games matter. Like the Kraken are a divisional rival and a team that had a playoff spot last year. If the Vancouver Canucks can beat them in regulation and pick up their 27th point of the season, again, they're moving double digits out in front of the Kraken at this stage as we come up near the first quarter poll of the season. So, yeah, I mean, we talk about games in November meaning as much as they do in February, March, and April. I don't want to oversell, but this is the proverbial 4-pointer for the Vancouver Canucks.
2.56 goals per game for the Kraken this year. It ranks 29th in the National Hockey League versus the Vancouver Canucks at 4.24, the only team scoring more than 4 goals per game at 12-4-1 and 25 points through 17 games this season.
This Sekeres Price clip brought to you by Applewood Auto Group. And remember,
it's all good at Applewood.